It was the 5th year of my marriage to Cheng Huaisha. The system told me I could go home. In the 7 days before my departure, I no longer cared where Cheng Huaisha went. I let him give most of his salary to the female lead, and even risk his official career for her, but all of a sudden, he grew unaccustomed to it. Later, when I was shopping, the familiar shopkeeper asked me if I was buying things for my mother. "Yes, I'm going home," I replied casually. Cheng Huaisha's head shot up. His eyes fixed on me. "Oh, finally can't stand it anymore. You struggled so hard to move to the capital, even bought a house. Why leave now?" Word had spread that Cheng Huaisha was being transferred to a remote post. People came, some gloating, others curious to find out the reason. But they didn't know that the transfer was Cheng Huaisha's own request, all for the female lead, Shen Chuxue, after breaking up with the male lead, Prince Li Zetan. Shen Chuxue didn't want to stay in the capital any longer. Yes, that was the only reason. Without a second thought, Cheng Huaisha gave up the promising official career he had fought for through 10 years of painstaking study, truly a devoted second male lead. At that moment, Cheng Huaisha was sitting in the room reading a book, watching me return after dealing with the neighbors. He took the vegetable basket from my hand, pausing slightly. Why so little? His salary was never much to begin with. Moreover, he gave most of his monthly salary to Shen Chuxue every time. Houses in the capital were worth their weight in gold. Buying this small courtyard had almost drained all our savings I had earned by running a street stall, but I never expected that we would have to sell it before living here for long. Without my careful planning, Cheng Huaisha, who knew nothing about money matters, was in a hurry to sell it off and ended up losing 40% of its value. I didn't say a word about it, only replying, "Vegetables are expensive in the capital." Cheng Huaisha cooked noodles with green vegetables, playing the role of a good husband perfectly. Back in remote Qingju, the neighbors had praised Cheng Huaisha as a rare catch, saying that I, a lonely girl with an unknown background, had struck it lucky. They didn't see me waking up at dawn and working till midnight at my stall, racking my brains to develop all kinds of Shandong-style pancakes and hand cakes. They only said that Cheng Huaisha was talented and handsome, and also considerate of his wife. When I first arrived, I had been grateful that my mission target was Cheng Huaisha. My task was to change his fate, where he sacrificed everything for Shen Chuxue and eventually died for the female lead. From the first day of college registration, when I transmigrated and bound to the system, until now, counting, I had been here for more than 5 years. Just yesterday, the system informed me that the mission was completed. For some reason, the male and female leads didn't end up together, and I had married Cheng Huaisha. Looking at the plain, watery noodles on the table, I silently repeated beef noodles in my mind, forcing myself to eat them. Anyway, in 7 days, I would be able to go back and eat all the delicious food I wanted. As I was eating, Cheng Huaisha spoke up. "Anan, Chuxue is in urgent need, my salary this month." That's when I remembered it was payday today. It seemed I wouldn't get a single copper coin this time. Afraid that I would make a scene as I used to, Cheng Huaisha quickly added an explanation. "The weather has turned cold these past few days. Chuxue is short of silver thread charcoal. You know, she's not like us. She can't stand the cold." I cut him off, my voice calm. "Fine." Cheng Huaisha stared at me in astonishment. He hadn't expected me to agree so easily. He pursed his lips and said, "It's good that you're being reasonable." Reasonable. A cold laugh echoed in my heart. This was my first mission, and I had stumbled through it clumsily. I didn't know any strategy or tricks to win someone over. I only knew how to exchange sincerity for sincerity. 5 years of pouring my heart and soul into this relationship, and all I got in return was being called reasonable. After dinner, Cheng Huaisha prepared to go out as usual. He was going to check if Shen Chuxue was safe staying alone at home. Perhaps afraid that I would get angry with him like before, he said something he never usually did. Chushua lost her family, it's only natural that I take a little more care of her. Shin Chushua's father had embezzled disaster relief funds, and the entire Shin family had been executed. A loyal old maid had swapped her own daughter for Shin Chushua, allowing her to escape and flee to her hometown in Qingju. Shin Chushua and Cheng Huaisha had known each other since childhood, a delicate, pampered young lady and a poor, hard-working scholar boy. To Cheng Huaisha, Shin Chushua was an untouchable white moonlight. As he spoke, a look of tender compassion flickered in his eyes. He probably didn't even realize how soft his voice became whenever he mentioned Shin Chushua. Fortunately, I had already come to terms with it. Who hasn't been in a failed relationship when they were young? I admit I had been blind. Cheng Huaisha said, "I'll be right back." Before he could finish his sentence, I was already yawning and turning to go back to my room. "If it gets too late, you can just stay at her place," I said. This time, Cheng Huaisha was completely stunned. My unexpected magnanimity made him freeze in his tracks. He frowned and asked me, "Are you angry?" Angry? No, I had stopped being angry a long time ago. I couldn't even remember when exactly I had stopped caring. Was it the last time? When Shin Chushua had a cold and he rushed over to her, leaving me stranded on the road, crippled with pain from my menstrual cramps? Or was it the time he gave her the wooden hairpin he had carved by hand, my birthday gift, which he had promised me just because Shin Chushua had glanced at it twice? There were too many such incidents, I could no longer recall them clearly, but I knew for sure that I didn't feel the slightest bit of anger now. But Cheng Huaisha refused to believe me. He said calmly, "Do you know, the last time you stopped me from going to her place, her house was almost broken into by thieves." He looked at me accusingly, as if Shin Chushua's near miss with a burglary was somehow my fault. Even though I wasn't angry, I wasn't about to take the blame for something like that. The alley where she rents her place is expensive. All the neighbors around are wealthy families with guards to watch their homes. She can't afford guards, and now it's my fault. Besides, it was Cheng Huaisha who paid her rent anyway. The courtyard where my husband and I lived was in a remote location, and most of our neighbors were difficult to deal with. Cheng Huaisha said coldly, "Chushua has suffered so much and only yearns for a lively place. Don't you have any empathy at all? Do you even have a conscience?" His bias was truly beyond redemption. There was no point in arguing. I smiled and said, "Then you should go comfort her quickly." Cheng Huaisha was left speechless. After a moment of silence, he sighed and said, "Don't be angry anymore. I'll be right back." I had heard those 4 words "I'll be right back" countless times before. In the beginning, I had foolishly waited up for him to return, often staying up until dawn. Cheng Huaisha would say that Chushua had had a nightmare and he couldn't bear to leave her, so he had guarded outside her door all night. Now, as the sound of his footsteps faded into the distance, I fell into a deep, sound sleep. There was no sign of Cheng Huaisha in my dreams, only the familiar sight of my home, and the enticing aroma of braised pork. It was wonderful. I was finally going home. Cheng Huaisha, good riddance. As expected, Cheng Huaisha didn't come home last night. Early the next morning, I stepped out of the house and immediately heard the neighbors gossiping. "Did you hear? Last night, there were vagrants loitering around Wuling Alley. A man took a knife to protect his wife, took the blow right with his bare hands. If only my husband were that brave." Sure enough, by noon, Cheng Huaisha returned home, his hand wrapped in bandages. I wasn't at home, so I didn't know how serious his injury was, and I didn't care whether it hurt or not. Once upon a time, I would have panicked even if he had cut his finger. I had truly taken good care of him. At first, when Cheng Huaisha had taken me in, I had done housework in exchange for rent, but I wasn't very good at it, so Cheng Huaisha had helped me with the chores. Later, as my hands became calloused and rough from years of hard work, I grew more and more proficient, and all the housework fell to me alone. After lunch, I changed my clothes, took my money pouch, and went out shopping. The system had said that if the mission was successful, I could bring my loved one back with me. I had negotiated with the system, and instead of a loved one, I chose to bring back local specialties. The system had agreed. I made a long shopping list in my mind, even including gifts for my distant third aunt. After all, I couldn't take this money with me when I left. Rather than letting Shinchushua get her hands on it, I might as well spend it on my third aunt, not far down the road. I spotted a group of hooligans loitering in the alley. I called out to them familiarly, "Brother Zhong," and paid them the protection fee. Cheng Huaisha was always busy with official duties, and when he wasn't working, he was with Shinchushua. He never saw how hard I worked just to get by. On those nights when he stayed with Shinchushua, I kept a kitchen knife under my pillow, too scared to sleep soundly. If even the neighborhood where Shinchushua lived wasn't safe, how could this place be any better? Anan, Cheng Huaisha's voice suddenly sounded behind me. I hadn't noticed when he had started following me. He had clearly seen what had just happened, the protection fee, the hooligans. His mouth opened and closed, but he didn't know what to say. I paused involuntarily, and Cheng Huaisha quickly caught up to me. "I took the day off today. I can accompany you," he said. I couldn't help but chuckle inwardly. When we first moved to the capital, I had wanted Cheng Huaisha to accompany me around the city, choosing where to buy a house, then furnishing it. There were so many things that needed his help, but he had said he was new to his job and couldn't spare the time. The very next day, he had taken a day off to accompany Shinchushua to visit her parents' graves. Now, if he wanted to follow me around, fine. We haven't gone shopping together like this in a long time, Cheng Huaisha said, a nostalgic look on his face. He gently took my hand, his eyes soft and tender. It was like going back to the days when we were still in Qingju. Back then, he would come to pick me up when I closed my stall. If I finished early, he would take me window shopping. Everything here had been so new and exciting to me, and he had patiently accompanied me as I browsed from stall to stall, touching and examining everything. The memories felt hazy, but fortunately, I soon snapped back to reality. Someone shouted that there was a fire in Wuling Alley. Cheng Huaisha instantly let go of my hand, grabbing the man to ask for details. The man replied, "Two kids were playing around and accidentally set the firewood shed on fire." Cheng Huaisha's expression turned tense immediately. He looked at me. "Anan, go," I said, "I can shop alone." I was no longer the girl who needed him to accompany her everywhere. As Cheng Huaisha left, he glanced back at me several times. "I'll accompany you another day," he said, "only 5 days left." I had no intention of wasting any more time on him. This time, Cheng Huaisha returned shortly after noon. There was no food left for him on the table, not that he needed any. In the past, he would have taken Shinchushua out to eat at a restaurant before coming home. I walked past him without a word. "Anan." For some reason, Cheng Huaisha sounded angry. He rubbed his temples irritably. "Didn't you notice I'm injured? Can you stop acting like this?" I just glanced at him lazily, not understanding what he was on about. With only days left before I left, the last thing I wanted was more trouble. I started avoiding any contact with Cheng Huaisha as much as possible. I came home late every day, only sneaking back once he was sound asleep. The protection money wasn't all for nothing. The local thugs never gave me any trouble. When Brother Zhong heard I was planning to divorce him, he even said I should have left a long time ago. He spat on the ground in disgust. "That bastard isn't worth your time. A capable lass like you, how did you end up marrying someone like him?" I laughed and agreed. "Yeah, I really regret it." For 3 whole days, Cheng Huaisha and I didn't exchange a single word. I didn't care what he was busy with, or if he was off seeing Shinchushua. A few times, when I came home, I could tell he wanted to talk to me, but I had no desire to listen, so I just pretended to be fast asleep, even with my eyes closed. I could feel him standing by the bed for a long, long time. Days passed just like that. Soon, only 2 days remained before my departure. I went to the jewelry shop to pick up the bracelet I had ordered, a gift for my mother. and I wanted nothing but the best for her. I had made an appointment with the shopkeeper, but he happened to be out when I arrived. His assistant had already taken out the blue jade bracelet I'd selected so carefully. I was about to examine it closely when a delicate, slender hand reached out and picked it up first. "Brother Shusha, do you think this looks good on me?" Shinchushua's voice was as sweet and soft as she was. Her hands were smooth and unblemished, no calluses at all. The blue jade made her skin look even fairer and more tender. "You look good in anything," Cheng Huaisha replied flatly. But his Adam's apple bobbed nervously, and the affection in his eyes was plain to see. "It's beautiful, but it can't be cheap, right?" Shinchushua said. "Buy it if you like it. Don't worry about the price." The shop assistant beamed with delight, forgetting all about me as he showered Cheng Huaisha and Shinchushua with flattery. "You're such a doting husband, sir." Shinchushua blushed shyly. Cheng Huaisha didn't deny the assistant's words. The tips of his ears turned pink with embarrassment. It was at that moment that his eyes met mine. For a split second, everything fell silent. Shinchushua and Cheng Huaisha stood side by side, she in an elegant white dress, her features delicate and lovely, he tall and handsome, with the refined air of a scholar. They stood so close together that no one could blame the assistant for mistaking them for a married couple. Anyone who saw them would have called them a perfect match. "Anan," Cheng Huaisha's eyes widened in panic, and he opened his mouth to explain. "I have the day off today." "So what? I'll explain when we get home." I ignored him, turning to Shinchushua and holding out my hand. "I'm sorry, but this is the one I ordered. Please feel free to look at the others." The shop assistant slapped his forehead, suddenly remembering. Right. The shopkeeper told me this bracelet was reserved by a customer." Shinchushua looked at the bracelet with obvious reluctance. "My mother used to have one exactly like this." She lowered her eyes, forcing a bitter smile. "Since it's already yours, sister, I wouldn't dream of taking it from you." With that, she started to take the bracelet off her wrist, but Cheng Huaisha stopped her. He looked at me, hesitation written all over his face. "Anan." After 5 years together, I understood what he wanted to say without him uttering a single word. "Sure enough," he said, "let Chushua have this one. I'll buy you a better one." "Okay." Shinchushua glanced at me, her eyes full of provocation, but she feigned hesitation, saying softly, "It's all right, I don't want to make sister unhappy." Cheng Huaisha's heart ached for her. He said firmly, "It's fine, we'll take this one, I'll pay double the price." The shop assistant looked at me awkwardly. My expression remained cold and impassive. "No," Cheng Huaisha frowned, shooting me a warning look. "Stop being unreasonable. You can choose something else." I still shook my head. Seeing that I wouldn't back down, a flash of impatience crossed his face, and the words spilled out before he could stop himself. "Why do you have to fight with Chushua over this? You wouldn't look good in it anyway." In that instant, the shop fell so quiet you could have heard a pin drop. I stared down at my hands, dark and rough, covered in calluses. 5 years. I had gone from a girl who never lifted a finger to do housework, to someone who handled every chore on her own. Shinchushua had lost her family, yet she still had maids waiting on her hand and foot. As for me, I was nothing but a poor sucker, tricked by the system into working like a slave. I fought back the urge to cry, not because Cheng Huaisha had hurt me, but because I felt so utterly wasted these past 5 years, helpless. So utterly helpless. I should have been in college classes, joining clubs, traveling, exploring new restaurants. Cheng Huaisha realized he had said the wrong thing. "Anan." "That's not what I meant." He reached out to touch me, but Shinchushua grabbed his sleeve, stopping him halfway. "Brother Shisha, I don't want it anymore." I had already calmed down. Cutting her off, I said, "I'll sell it to you, for 5 times the price. 5 times the price would let me buy my mother an even nicer gift." This one was tainted with bad luck now, anyway. For some reason, Cheng Huaisha moved slowly when he pulled out his silver. I let out a cold laugh. You're not saying you can't afford it, are you? Cheng Huaisha shot me a sharp look, then silently placed the silver in my hand. I had just pocketed the money when the shopkeeper returned. After hearing what had happened from his assistant, he apologized profusely and immediately started showing me even better bracelets. Shenchushua had gotten the bracelet she wanted and tried to drag Cheng Huaisha out of the shop, but he didn't move. She called his name, and he finally snapped out of his daze, but still, he didn't leave. His eyes were fixed on me, unblinking. On the way home, Cheng Huaisha and I walked with enough space between us for 2 more people. Every time he tried to get closer, I quietly stepped away to maintain the distance. Earlier, he had actually let Shenchushua go back alone, choosing to wait for me at the shop door instead. How unusual, he sighed heavily. Today is Chushua's parents' death anniversary. That's why I went to accompany her to their graves. We just happened to pass by that jewelry shop on our way back. Don't be unreasonable. I nodded and replied, okay. The rest of Cheng Huaisha's words died in his throat. I wasn't really listening anyway. His voice was just as annoying as a fly buzzing in my ear. I was too busy making plans. Tomorrow was my last day. The shopkeeper had said a new bracelet of excellent quality would be arriving. I would have to go back tomorrow and pick the very best one for my mom, but I knew no matter what I brought home, she would love it. She would scold me for spending too much money, then wear it everywhere to show it off to everyone she knew. The thought made me smile involuntarily. Cheng Huaisha stared at me, stunned. He opened his mouth to say something, but I had already left him far behind. I'm tired. We'll talk about it another time, I said. That night, Cheng Huaisha and I lay in the same bed. 2 people who had once been so close, now strangers to each other. In the darkness, Cheng Huaisha's hand reached across the space between us, gently wrapping around me. I pretended to turn over in my sleep, moving away from him. His hand froze in midair. Anan, what's really wrong with you? I'd rather you yell at me, argue with me like you used to. I rolled my eyes and soon drifted off to sleep. The final day arrived. As soon as I woke up early in the morning, the system appeared, a glowing orb floating in the air, visible only to me. It double-checked that my mission was indeed complete, confirming that Cheng Huaisha would not die for Shenchushua. Then it informed me the countdown had started. 5 hours left. Please finish all remaining matters in this world as soon as possible. Host. I climbed out of bed, completely unaware that Cheng Huaisha had opened his eyes at some point. He stared blankly at the empty space where the system orb had been floating. 5 years ago, when I had first arrived in this world, I had gone straight to him and told him I was an immortal here to save his life. He hadn't believed me, of course, thought I was crazy. I had recounted details of his life with perfect accuracy, and then he'd thought I was a con artist. But later, when I had ended up homeless and nearly fallen victim to some thugs, he had taken me in anyway. The system had told me Cheng Huaisha was a soft-hearted man. I had been so happy back then, but I hadn't understood that his kindness wasn't reserved for me alone, and that kindness was not the same as love. I had mistaken his soft heart for affection and poured my entire soul into loving him. The system had warned me once that falling for the mission target was the worst mistake a host could make. I wasn't stupid, I'd been scared, but not long after. The system had announced a new rule change. Hosts were now allowed, albeit reluctantly, to fall in love with their targets, because some legendary host in another world had fallen in love and broken all the old rules. The system had been forced to compromise, adding a new reward. The option to bring your loved one back with you when the mission ended. I had been over the moon, thinking what amazing luck it was for a rookie like me. Later, Cheng Huaisha and I had gotten married. He was an orphan, with no family to speak of. We had bowed to heaven as our mother and earth as our father, with no witnesses or wedding guests to bless us. There had been no wedding dress, no grand ceremony as I had imagined, but I had still been so happy. On our wedding night, Cheng Huaisha had asked me where my home was. I hadn't known how to explain the truth, So I told him it was very far away. He had thought I didn't want to tell him, and his eyes had dimmed with disappointment. He hadn't pressed the matter, just murmured a quiet "I see, when the time is right." I had told him with a smile, "This immortal will take you home with me." His eyes had lit up, and he had pulled me into his arms, holding me tight. "I'd love that," he had said. "I want to meet your family. Your family will be my family too." That promise would never be kept now. Cheng Huaisha had left for court early in the morning. As soon as he was gone, I gave my pancake cart to the aunt who had looked out for me so many times over the years. Along with all the recipes I had created myself, I donated all my old clothes to a local charity. I looked around the small house we had shared and erased every trace of my existence, cleaning it spotless. When I arrived at the jewelry shop this time, the shopkeeper was already waiting for me. He noticed the style of bracelet I was looking at wasn't suited for a young woman and asked, "Is this a gift for your mother, miss?" "Yes," I replied with a smile. "I'm going home." A loud crash sounded behind me. I turned around to see Cheng Huaisha standing there, his face as white as a sheet, staring at me in disbelief. Cheng Huaisha stood in silence, watching me as I examined the bracelets on display. His appearance was disheveled, his hair messy, unlike his usual neat and tidy self, as if he had run all the way here straight from the palace after court ended. He stood beside me, his face still deathly pale, his hands hidden in his sleeves trembling violently. I paid him no mind, focusing all my attention on comparing the quality of the different jade bracelets laid out before me. The shop assistant spotted Cheng Huaisha and greeted him obsequiously. "Back again, sir. Did your wife like that bracelet from yesterday?" Cheng Huaisha snapped. "She is not my wife." The assistant looked thoroughly embarrassed. As he walked away, he muttered to himself, "Wasn't she your wife just yesterday? Why the change of heart today?" In the end, I spent every last coin I had on me and picked out the priciest, most beautiful one. Cheng Huaisha's pupils constricted when he saw me paying. His voice trembled as he spoke. "Anan, you can buy whatever you want. I'll work hard to earn more money from now on." Was he upset that I'd spent so much? "When we get back to Qingju, let's go shopping together, okay?" The imperial court had already made its decision. Cheng Huaisha would be sent to serve as a local official in Qingju next month. Qingju was a remote, barren place. Yet Cheng Huaisha had begged for the posting there. It wasn't because we were from Qingju, or because we had any fond memories tied to the place. It was because Shen Chushua's hometown was in Qingju. He was going to accompany Shen Chushua back to her hometown to live. The salary for a local official was less than a third of what he'd earned working in the capital. I had no idea what he meant by working hard to earn money. I replied casually, "Sure." I'd received plenty of promises from Cheng Huaisha over the years, and he'd broken just as many of them. I didn't want to pick another fight with him before I left. It was for everyone's sake to wrap things up with a shred of dignity. I thought he'd understand. After all, he was always so reasonable. Cheng Huaisha visibly brightened up at my answer. He seemed to let out a sigh of relief, then reached for my hand again. "Anan." The system's voice chimed in right on cue. "Countdown, 2 hours remaining." Cheng Huaisha froze mid-movement, but he still took my hand in his. He asked, "What do you want for lunch, Anan?" "Whatever you're craving, we'll have it." I would be gone before lunchtime, 5 years ago. I'd transmigrated the moment I stepped through the university gates at 11 o'clock in the morning, so my departure time was also set for 11 a.m. I thought carefully and said, "I want braised chicken rice." After finishing my registration, I'd gone to eat it with Mom. The senior girls in the group chat had said the braised chicken rice stand right outside the school gate was amazing. Cheng Huaisha looked stunned. "What's that?" I didn't bother answering him. I wouldn't be eating it with him anyway. Seeing that I wasn't going to reply, he rambled on. "Is it made with chicken? If you want to eat it, Anan, I can learn how to cook it. We'll go buy a chicken at the market later." I blinked in surprise and shot him a glance. Cheng Huaisha stiffened. Realizing he'd let the cat out of the bag, we already had chickens at home, no need to buy any. He'd clearly been back home and seen that I'd sold all the chickens. I'd raised those chickens myself, once I left. Who knew if Cheng Huaisha would bother taking good care of them? Selling them was the better option. Cheng Huaisha looked like a man pretending to be drunk, refusing to wake up to reality. He went on, "I'll buy a box of peanut crisps too. While I'm at it, I was allergic to peanuts." It was Shen Chushue who loved peanut crisps, but I just raised an eyebrow and said, "Sure." The more he acted like this, the less trouble it was for me. The system reminded me, countdown, 1 hour remaining. I watched Cheng Huaisha bustling about in the kitchen. Just a few minutes earlier, he'd dragged me back home with him. He was so hot that he'd taken off his outer robe and rolled up his sleeves. Hot oil splattered onto the back of his hand, blistering the skin instantly, but he bit his lip hard and didn't make a sound. Sweat dripped down his forehead, yet he still glanced up at me and smiled. "Anan, go wait in the other room, the braised chicken will be ready soon." Not that he even knew what braised chicken was. A bowl of weirdly cooked braised chicken pieces was set down on the table in front of me. Cheng Huaisha hid his scalded hand behind his back and grinned at me. "Taste it quickly, Anan. Is this the braised chicken you wanted?" Before I could say a word, Shen Chushue's voice suddenly rang out from outside the door. "Brother Huai, are you home? Why didn't you come last night?" Cheng Huaisha hadn't gone to check on Shen Chushue last night like he always did. I shot him a surprised look. Cheng Huaisha pressed his lips together and said, "It wasn't just last night. I won't be coming anymore, not ever. You never really needed me." Shen Chushue looked shocked. She hadn't expected Cheng Huaisha to speak to her like that. "Did sister tell you not to come?" She must have misunderstood our relationship. "Brother Huai." She didn't get to finish her sentence before Cheng Huaisha cut her off sharply. "It has nothing to do with her." Cheng Huaisha shot me an anxious glance. Shen Chushue's words died in her throat. After a moment, she put on a pitiful expression and said, "But I'm scared, Brother Huai. There have been so many thieves hanging around Wuling Alley lately. What if some villain tries to hurt me?" Cheng Huaisha said flatly, "If it's not safe there, then move, find a cheaper courtyard. And you can use the money you save to hire a bodyguard." I let out a laugh despite myself. So he did know all along. Shen Chushue's eyes widened in disbelief as she stared at Cheng Huaisha. "Brother Huai, are you really not going to take care of me anymore?" Cheng Huaisha closed his eyes briefly, his voice turning cold. "Do you want me to spell it out for you? The other day, I saw Li Zetten going in and out of your courtyard. With him looking out for you, no one would dare lay a finger on you." So that was it. The hero and heroine had actually gotten back together. No wonder Cheng Huaisha had managed to steel himself and not go see Shen Chushue last night. But then why had my mission still been completed? I was still puzzling over this when I heard Shen Chushue fluster. "Brother Huai, let me explain. There's no way Chushue could ever be with Li Zetten." Seeing that Cheng Huaisha remained completely unmoved, Shen Chushue grew even more frantic. "All these years, Li Zetten has never loved me. His side is always filled with those scheming women, so-called foster sisters, so-called confidants. I've never had a place in his heart." She suddenly fell silent mid-tirade, as if she was trying to confirm something, and quickly turned to Cheng Huaisha, asking, "But I'm different to you, aren't I, Brother Huai? I'm your—" "That's enough." Cheng Huaisha cut her off sharply. It was the first time he'd ever spoken to Shen Chushue with such little patience. "Leave, and don't come back. As far as I'm concerned, you're just an ordinary friend. I, Cheng Huaisha, only have one wife and that's Anan." Cheng Huaisha shut the door firmly in Shen Chushue's face. Then he returned to the table. He shot me an awkward glance. "Eat quickly, Anan. It'll get cold if you wait any longer." I didn't move my chopsticks. I wasn't hungry. I wanted to save my appetite for when I went back home. If I ate Cheng Huaisha's cooking now, I wouldn't have room left for the food I'd been craving. As he watched me hesitate, the light in Cheng Huaisha's eyes dimmed more and more. Did I make it wrong? I'll cook it again right away. He shot to his feet abruptly. I said, there are no more chickens left at home. Then I'll go buy one. Wait for me to come back, Annan, and I'll make it for you again. I can't wait that long. I looked straight into Cheng Huaisha's evasive eyes. The air in the room seemed to freeze solid. Cheng Huaisha froze completely. If it weren't for the fact that he was still breathing, I would have thought time itself had stopped. Staring at his handsome face, 5 years of shared days and nights flashed through my mind in an instant. Falling in love at 18 had been far too young for me. When you haven't seen the world, haven't met anyone truly outstanding, it's easy to fall head over heels and lose all sense of perspective. Or perhaps it had been a case of imprinting, like a baby bird fixating on the first thing it sees after hatching. For a long time, Cheng Huaisha had been the only person I could rely on in this strange world. If I'd been back in my original world, I would have broken up with him the first time he'd made me sad. Then I would have gone to a cozy little bar with my new college friends, listened to some sad love songs, shed a few melodramatic tears, and moved on with my life. So this whole mission and transmigration thing felt a lot like kidnapping. If I was being honest, it had severed all the ties I'd built over 18 years in my own world, dumped me in a place where I knew no one and nothing, given me absolutely nothing to work with, and then expected me to slave away for it. Loving Cheng Huaisha back then had been nothing more than a form of self-deception and self-preservation. I loved him, so I had to save him. I was doing it willingly, because I loved him. My entire life had revolved around him from the very start. It had never been a relationship of equals. Once the village women who knew me had figured out that I didn't love Cheng Huaisha anymore, they'd tried to comfort me. All men are like that, they'd said. At least Cheng Huaisha is ambitious and promising. It's better to come to terms with it now than to wait until he takes a bunch of concubines later. Prepare yourself early, and hold on to your position as the main wife. They'd been right, of course. For most women in this era, that had been the only path available to them. They'd had no other choice. I felt an overwhelming surge of gratitude that I didn't belong here. Yes, I didn't belong here. Countdown, 1 minute remaining, space-time portal opening now, congratulations. Host 8899, on completing your mission, you will be returning home shortly. Cheng Huaisha suddenly pulled me into a tight embrace. His body was burning hot against mine, holding me captive in his arms as if he never intended to let go. Annan, let's start over. This time, I promise I'll do better, I'll be better. The system popped up one last time to confirm with me. Does the host confirm that she does not wish to bring her lover back to her original world? I nodded without the slightest hesitation. Confirmed, Annan. Cheng Huaisha looked at me, his eyes bloodshot with tears. Don't leave me. If you're going, take me with you. He dug his fingers into my shoulders so hard they hurt. Don't abandon me. That was when it hit me. Cheng Huaisha could hear the system's voice too. The system ran a quick diagnostic and explained, the bring lover home function is still in its beta testing phase, so minor glitches are unavoidable. During the final departure sequence, the host's lover may be able to hear the system's announcements. This is the first time we've encountered a case where someone who is not the host's lover has been able to hear it. Though, thank you for your feedback, Host 8899. The system will report this bug and implement a fix as soon as possible. Having delivered its explanation, the system went back to its pre-programmed procedures, confirming items to be taken as local specialties. 1 pair of Hatien jade bracelets, 1 pair of pearl-inlaid gold earrings, 1 red agate hairpin adorned with 8 treasures, 1 top-grade jadeite hair ornament, 1 ancient white jade pendant carved with twin dragons. The system droned on like it was reciting a menu, listing item after item for a full 2 minutes. Confirmed, I said. Turns out, when you choose not to bring a lover back with you, the amount of loot you can take is surprisingly generous. Final countdown, 30 seconds, 30, 29, 28. I looked at Cheng Huaisha for the very last time. He still couldn't seem to accept what was happening, tears falling onto my cheeks one by one. "Anan, don't go." Just like I used to do back when we were deeply in love, I reached up and gently stroked his hair. My touch was soft and tender, as if we were still the couple we'd once been. I'd appeared in front of Cheng Huaisha out of nowhere. On our wedding night, he'd kissed me, his lips brushing against my eyebrows and eyes. I slaved away at my food stall from dawn till dusk, and he'd looked at me with such tenderness, vowing he'd never let me down. Those memories flashed before my eyes one by one, as vivid as if they'd happened just yesterday. A glimmer of hope flickered in Cheng Huaisha's eyes, but my next words shattered that hope into a million pieces in an instant. "Cheng Huaisha, we were husband and wife once. Let's part ways amicably. We'll never meet again. 3, 2, 1, no." The moment the words left my lips, I vanished from his arms without a trace. In the space-time portal, I thought I heard the sound of crying. I didn't look back. With a sack full of local treasures slung over my shoulder, I strode unhesitatingly toward the bright light ahead. I was home. The end. Side story. The first time I met Anan was on a sunny day. She'd appeared in front of me out of the blue. "Are you Cheng Huaisha?" she asked. "You can call me Anan." At that time, I'd just received a letter from Chushue. In it, she'd rambled on about a terribly annoying young master she'd met, a boy who thought he was better than everyone else just because he was born into a wealthy family, who looked down his nose at people and treated her like she was invisible. Even though the letter was addressed to me, she'd filled an entire page with complaints about that boy named Li Zetan. I'd lost my parents when I was little, growing up dependent on the charity of my uncles and cousins. I'd learned to be sensible far too early in life. I knew that Chushua must have been nursing a silly, schoolgirl crush on Li Zetan. A twinge of jealousy and disappointment pricked at my heart, but I quickly pushed those useless feelings aside. That was when Anan showed up. She said she'd come to save me. My mind had been full of Chushua, though, so I'd brushed her off without a second thought. She'd refused to give up, coming back again and again. Each time, I'd sent her away. She was about the same age as Chushua, but they were nothing alike, not a trace of the refined, demure lady about her. The next time our paths crossed, she'd been cornered by two beggars, on the verge of being molested. I'd rushed forward and saved her. She'd thrown her arms around me and burst into loud, unrestrained sobs. No proper young lady would ever behave like that. On an impulse, I'd brought her home with me. Through her tears, she babbled incoherently. "Thank you. I'll definitely repay you for this. I'm going to save you." She tried to help me with the chores, but she'd been clumsy as could be. I'd guessed she must be a lost young miss from some wealthy family. How else could she be so utterly useless at menial work? But she'd learned with remarkable earnestness. Her fingers had gotten cut and scraped, her palms had toughened into calluses, and she'd never once complained. She was always brimming with ideas. At first, no one wanted to buy her pancakes, and the other vendors at the alley entrance had ganged up to bully her. But back then, I'd had no patience for comforting her. Because Chushua was coming home, I'd heard the news from the neighbors, but days passed, and she never came to see me. I'd grown restless, and Anan's constant chatter about her new business schemes had only grated on my nerves further. I'd snapped at her. She'd stared at me in shock, then pouted and walked away. A flicker of guilt had tugged at my conscience. But I told myself she'd get over it soon enough. She always did. She never needed me to coddle her. Her pancake stall continued to struggle, until one day, a young master from a wealthy family happened to pass by. Intrigued by the novelty, he tried one of her pancakes, then raved about how delicious it was. Pressing a generous amount of reward money into her hands, that young master had come back every single day for over a fortnight. Not only had he given her piles of silver, but his patronage had also turned her failing business around completely. Curious crowds had flocked to her stall, all eager to taste the pancakes that had earned such high praise from a nobleman from the capital. Meanwhile, I still hadn't laid eyes on Chushua. Seizing an opportunity, I'd gone to find Chushua's personal maid. Before I could even open my mouth, the maid had waved me away dismissively. "Our young lady's been too busy lately to waste time on nobodies like you." That could not have been Chushua's idea. I'd stood rooted to the spot for a long time, reassuring myself that Chushua would never treat me like this. I dragged my feet back home. Passing the alley where Anan ran her stall, I'd spotted that young master from the capital talking to her. He'd said, "Selling your pancakes for 8 coins apiece is way too cheap. I think you should charge 3 taels for one." Anan had nodded without a moment's hesitation. "Sure." Then she'd proceeded to charge him 3 taels per pancake, while continuing to sell them to everyone else for 8 coins. When the young master had figured out her little trick, he'd laughed in disbelief. "I was trying to help you out here," he'd exclaimed. "You're practically giving these pancakes away, you're losing money. And selling them so cheaply is stealing business from the other vendors. Do you have any idea how many people are badmouthing you behind your back?" Anan had rolled her eyes. "Let them talk, I've been badmouthing them right back, anyway. And trust me, they're not half as good at it as I am." The young master had been left speechless, but he'd kept coming back to her stall every day after that, as if he'd moved in there permanently. For some reason, a strange, unfamiliar feeling had stirred in my chest. Before I could make sense of it, Chushua had come to me, tears streaming down her face. It turned out that young master was none other than Li Zetan. Chushua had wailed that Li Zetan had come to Qingju specifically to accompany her, yet he'd vanished without a trace every single day. Then she'd found out he'd been spending all his time loitering at a lowly pancake stall. The maid who'd chased me away earlier had tried to console her. "Don't cry, young lady. That little tramp's nothing but a street vendor. She's not fit to lick your shoes." Chushua had shaken her head. "That's not what I meant. I'm just worried Li Zetan's being tricked. He's the Prince Regent's son." Countless women would claw each other's eyes out to climb into his bed. "That pancake seller's a complete stranger. No one knows where she came from. Brother Huai, do you have any idea who she really is?" As she spoke, Chushua had turned to me, her eyes searching mine. That was the real reason she'd come to me. I'd seen right through her little scheme, but I'd chosen not to expose it. It was only natural for a young lady to have her petty jealousies and schemes. I'd only felt a twinge of regret that I couldn't answer her question, because I didn't know where Anan had come from, either. All I knew was her name. Perhaps she really was a fairy from heaven, just as she'd once joked. A faint smile had tugged at the corners of my lips at the thought. After Chushua had left, I'd stood by the courtyard gate for a long, long time. Her words had echoed relentlessly in my mind. "Brother Huai, you've been living under the same roof as her this whole time. Can you really say there's nothing going on between you two? Don't get me wrong, I just meant, you two actually make quite a good match, don't you think?" She was right. A mysterious orphan girl with no family to speak of, a penniless orphan boy with nothing but the clothes on his back. We really did make the perfect match. I'd let out a bitter, humorless laugh. I'd known and saw me as something more than just a friend. It was only natural. Given our age, we were both at that awkward stage where hearts fluttered easily and we'd spent every waking moment together. But I was far more mature than her, far better at keeping my feelings in check. Once I'd realized her feelings, I'd gone out of my way to avoid being alone with her. She'd been downhearted about it for a long time. The sun had begun to set, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and gold. Anan had appeared at the alley entrance, pushing her heavy pancake cart all by herself. She was so small and slender, and the cart was so large and cumbersome, yet in the glow of the setting sun, she'd looked radiant, like a beacon of light. When she'd spotted me standing there, she'd waved at me, her face lighting up with joy. She'd assumed I'd been waiting for her, and her happiness had been palpable. A thought had popped into my head unbidden. If I really did end up with Annan, would Chushua be jealous? Just as I'd been jealous of her feelings for Lee Zetten,